who should we bring in? Nadine, let's bring you in. Because you have both the academic side of things at the University of Gloucestershire, but you are very much involved in doing this on the ground in Indonesia. So looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that, please.
Right. Hello again, David, and hello, everybody. I've just looked down at the participants list, and there are a few names that I've seen before, but quite a few names that I haven't come across before. So it's lovely to meet you in this way. And David, again, thank you very much for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to be here and to be talking to you and colleagues about these topics. Now, what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about our work in Indonesia, and I suppose I'm going to add a further layer to the range of questions that Nuha has just listed and introduced us to, which I thought was very interesting to listen to. And that's not what we are talking about, but how we are actually going to do it. So basically, I think Build brings a very interesting dimension to this debate, and that is the role of institutions in building community resilience, specifically the role of educational and higher educational institutions, which is the area that I'm particularly interested in. I am a lecturer at the University of Gloucestershire in Systemic Resilience Management, and as David already has mentioned, over the last few years, I have been involved and I've been leading a project in Indonesia, which is entitled Building Universities and Leading Disaster Resilience. So what we have done is to work with 8 universities across Indonesia, and we have thought about what these universities individually and also collectively can do in order to build resilience systemically. And we have looked, obviously, at the conventional activities that universities engage in, which is curriculum development, research and knowledge transfer, et cetera, But for us, community outreach and assisting communities in becoming more resilient to diverse types of disasters, be it volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, issues around urban resilience, poverty, climate change. I mean, this was quite central to what we've done. And I feel here it's very important to look at how educational sectors and also how educational institutions are set up and configured to actually deliver support for resilience building. And what is very interesting about Indonesia is that most universities have an organizational and institutional unit which deals with research and community service. So research and community service in those institutions very often sit together. And that makes a lot of sense when you're looking at the context of Indonesia, where a lot of challenges rest in communities, rest around the areas of resilience. So basically, what we've seen in those institutions is that academics tend to combine their research with community outreach activities. So we have had examples of academics working with communities at the foot of volcanoes, helping them to understand what the risk of volcanic eruptions, what preparedness means. We have got academics that work with communities on earthquake preparedness. There was a lot of activity during the pandemic to support communities, particularly those who were less privileged in navigating the challenges of the pandemic. So I fear that in Indonesia, because of the institutional setup, we do have an element that's systemic and that actually enables meaningful community outreach activities. Now, elsewhere around the globe, certainly in the UK and in Europe, it tends to be a little bit more ad hoc. So community outreach activities tends to be driven more by academic priorities that institutions set. So we do increasingly see the emergence of centers of excellence or notional centers of excellence that are focusing on community resilience. That is because the institution may have taken a strategic a strategic decision to make community resilience, community outreach activities, whether locally or internationally, a priority. But more often than not, it's driven by the passions of individual academics who maybe want to combine community outreach activities with their PhD research. We've had examples of that, or who may have been able to secure either smaller amounts of funding for local initiatives or larger amounts of funding, as I and my team have done for Build. So in my view, following the question that Nuha has thrown out there as to what is that we're actually talking about, what is the terminology that we are using, how do we measure impact? I suppose for me, it's really the what are the systems that we need to have in place locally, institutionally, but also at policy level in order to make community resilience meaningful. And I'm going to stop here.
Thanks. How do we make it meaningful? I think there's always those three things. There's always the three things we're trying to achieve, which is influence, impact, and legacy. But I think that, that we're going to loop around that. How do we demonstrate? To come back to Nuha's point, how do we demonstrate actual impact and then potentially measure that so that we have some outputs that we can bring to the table in terms of substantive data, information, et cetera, et cetera.